Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Tuesday, April 7th. I have a bunch of clips from Monday morning, and then this video is going up tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 p.m. So, a lot of things to get to. First of all, what I'm covering thus far is Trump's disastrous press conference, and it seems like he's going to, if he has the capabilities left, it depends on how much, missiles and bombs he wants to expend on this war. Trump is going to bomb Iran's critical infrastructure. And, he's threatening it, and we'll see what happens. Iran is not going to capitulate, so it's going to be whether he's holds true with his threat. I started making these clips yesterday. I forgot to do an introduction. I'm doing that now. So he had this disastrous press conference, and he's gone mad. Like Trump's like the mad king that loses his shit, and no one knows what to do about it, right? Tucker Carlson, I just saw this thing this morning. We'll get to that. He's given a savage, like he's turned on Trump completely. I mean, I don't know how he can say the things he said would be like supportive of him. And I'll show you that. And then there was a few more things I saw last night for the press conference, but this is all the stuff from yesterday and Alex Jones, everyone reacting to Trump's Easter tweet. So, okay, let's start here. Iranian officials on Monday rejected the latest ceasefire proposal and signaled a continuation of a weeks-long war, according to multiple reports, one day before President Donald J. Trump, Trump's deadline, come on, bro. Deadline for Iran to reopen the Straits of Hormuz or face hell. So, the Iranians realized that they couldn't negotiate in good faith with Trump because the last time they were negotiating, he killed the supreme leader, right? And they've done this a number of times. And, whether it's negotiations or, the U.S. doesn't play fair. Trump is impulsive. He doesn't have any sort of moral compass, and, maybe he's Trump. And they got him on the ropes because he is whining and having tantrums and fucking begging like a little bitch to have the Strait of Hormuz, which means he knows there's no way to get it open. Like, they can go ground troops. That doesn't mean they're going to get it open. And, they don't have really any solutions here. Like, he can bomb civilians and commit war crimes. But, he's probably realizing that Netanyahu and everybody bullshitted him into believing that he was in a much better position than he actually is. He probably didn't know anything about the Strait of Hormuz before going in, and now doesn't know all that much about it other than the fact that he doesn't control it and can't control it. And, these guys all want control and, all these powerful people, and they crumble when they don't have it. Like, Trump's a bully, and he wants to be in the bully position. He can't stop them from, closing the Strait of Hormuz, and it's killing America. If it continues, it's going to bring America to its knees. And, amongst other things. So that's the first piece. Trump is also losing his shit. Let me show you some more of that. So the Walter Reed thing seems to be fake, which, unfortunately. But here he is holding a press conference.
If the time comes, we move heaven and earth to bring them home safely. We're going to bring our people home safely. I want to thank every member of the U.S. Armed Forces involved in these historic operations. They really were historic. It's just not something that's done. And you'd understand it. Not that they don't want to do it, but when you're going into areas, when you look at these helicopters, when you look at the amount of bullets and everything else that they took, when you go into these areas, you don't come out like we came out. God was watching us. I tell you, well.
God was watching us?
It was the Easter. We were in Easter territory, I guess, but God was watching.
So if you attack on Easter, God's more likely to keep your troops from getting killed. Is that what you're saying? You fuck, right?
It's amazing.
I mean, when you were playing golf and you're supposed to be in church?
Because when you look at the machinery, they took damage. It tells you, first thing I said is, these are unbelievable machines, how they flew back and not even much of a problem. But these two extraordinary rescues, because it was two, and as you probably know, we didn't talk about the first one for an hour. And then somebody leaked something, which we'll hopefully find that leaker. We're looking very hard to find that leaker. And talked about there's somebody missing. They basically said that we have one and there's somebody missing. Well, they didn't know there was somebody missing until this leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out because we're going to go to the leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out because we're going to go to the media company that released it, and we're going to say, national security, give it up or go to jail.
So that's fucked up, right? You know, they're not supposed to reveal their sources. And so, like he's saying, you know, there's no freedom of the press. Like he's just trampling all over the Constitution, right?
And we know who, and you know who we're talking about, because some things you can't do. Because when they did that, all of a sudden, the entire country of Iran knew that there was a pilot that was somewhere on their land that was fighting for his life.
Leaker. So that's, they're gonna go. What are you gonna do with a leaker? Charge him with treason? What if it's like Pete Hegseth?
And it also made it much more difficult for the pilots and for the people going in to search for him. All of a sudden, they know that there's somebody
All
out.
right, you know, so we got that right. You know, everybody's bummed about people on the right wing about his Easter Day post. You know how fucked up it was. You know the whole here's Alex Jones.
So my Easter message to everyone in America and across the world is one of humanity coming together, one of loving God, one of thanking God for sending his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, to redeem us and pay for our sins, and that Jesus is King and that Jesus is risen.
The basics.
And I saw Trump's Easter message to Iran.
You know, like all the major religions, within the religions themselves, you know, there's different sects, S-E-C-T-S, sects, sects. I don't know. Sects. There's different, these, you know, divisions within, you know, the Catholic and various Protestant religions. I mean, you know, there's a Church of the Brethren and the Baptist, you know, there's evangelical people, there's all these, you know, people, the born again Christians, there's, you know, they all thinking they have the right thing. You know, there's a Shiite and the Sunni Muslims. You know, in the Hindu religion, there's multiple you know, there's people who worship Rama and others people who worship Krishna. You know, and there's like all these things. There's all these, like, you know, there's people who worship the, like, animal, you know, there's animal stuff there, like, you know, praying to various, like, idols and gods or whatever it might be. You know, taking a specific part of the overall religion and focusing, like, there's people in West Virginia who hold poisonous snakes and dance around with them, right? Like that kind of shit, right? So there's a lot of that. You know, there's a liberal reporter who didn't believe in God. You know, some intellectual guy who goes up to West Virginia where he's got these, you know, hillbillies, and starts covering them, dancing around with snakes, and he ends up fucking doing it. Like you know, he gets like cultified into it, you know, like this. But anyways, there's all this division within the religions themselves. This isn't like just the religious wars between the Muslims and Christians and Jews and the Hindus and the Muslims and, you know, these various, you know, overall, you know, the Buddhists and Chinese and, you know, government and, you know, within the religions themselves, there's backstabbing and fucking horrible behavior and all this stuff, right? And then the pedo stuff and all that creepy shit. And so you can say that religions have completely failed, you know, going with the voiceover from my last video. Like there's a spiritual solution. And the spiritual solution is you have to connect to divinity within you and then really, you know, rise up to it, right? I mean, that's what happened with this guy Dodgy, even in the Sagemark system that I do. The guy failed, and like he's petty and, you know, he was pissed at the old master, whatever it was. Whatever bullshit reasons he has for doing what he's doing. You know, you have to do it. You have to, like, succeed. You can't, like, bow down to your ego. Like, you're always fighting with your ego. And so these religions have all failed because they're ego-based now. right? And Alex Jones, of course, is a big ego person. Trump is. I mean, most of these famous celebrities. I mean, everyone's a big ego person, but these celebrities and these wealthy and famous people are the cream of the crop when it comes to that. And so anyways, let's get back to it.
And about open the strait, you crazy bastards, or I'm blowing up your bridges and power plants today, which they did. And then using that, F word, and then talking about Allah, praise Allah, Allah's great or whatever. Number one, just from a psychological perspective, when Trump killed the mullah, which Israel told him to do, they said that would make him give up. That's the opposite of making him give up. And blowing up their bridges and power plants, it just hurts the citizens, just unified them. So just from a military perspective, it's horrible win the hearts and minds. Our military did act like this in the past with their rhetoric.
It's war crimes, and it's not. I mean, it's a little fucking Lord Fauntleroy who doesn't have any real military experience and is kind of a bitch and a pussy himself, and likes to get his way, and he likes to bully these countries, and they're not doing what he wants them to do, right? And he's getting. I mean, he's got an incompetent administration, a bunch of yes men around him. He's losing his shit, right? His mind has gone to shit. So, he's at the worst possible time. I mean, so none of these things are smart. He's just making threats, like wild threats. They're not going to open the Strait of Hormuz until you fucking leave, right? Until you leave. If you left now, there would be but he's got to win some kind of moral victory. Right now, if he leaves, it's a defeat. And of course, Israel's not going to let him either. So he's caught in this trap. You can see how depressed he is. He knows he's fucked, right?
And it's super bad news. And this is not the old Trump. It's one thing if he says fuck on the campaign trail or whatever. I do that too.
When you do that too?
But on Easter, with messages about Allah Akbar and give up, you crazy effers, they're not going to. And they've closed the strait. It's killing the economy. America's sinking global rankings of likability. It's just not what we voted for. And we've never seen rhetoric out of presidents.
All right, so the guy's worse. These the exact opposite of what you thought he was going to be. I mean, all these people should admit that they failed because everyone knew this was Trump. Like we didn't. This was the when you evaluate talent, when you evaluate somebody, they say this person has a high floor. So, but maybe not as high as ceiling. That this person's never, like this player, like say, for example, they're evaluating, some kind of college prospects. And, you kind of know what the person's flaws are. I mean, everything's so, I mean, the way that sports works now, they examine the body type and, the tendencies of the person. And, there's things that like talent can be maximized or not given the person's work ethic and their drive and their will to victory. I mean, a lot of it comes down to that kind of stuff, but they can still evaluate that. And everyone knew that this was possibly what Trump was going to do. This was Trump's always been a narcissistic, selfish piece of shit. Weak, incapable of taking criticism, incapable of just so many things, a deeply flawed motherfucker. And they pushed him, like we knew from the first term. And the way he went out with the Operation fucking Ajax and the rest of that shit. And like he was a known entity and we knew that he was fucking, capable of doing anything. I mean, the Operation Ajax was as bad as it got and the way they behaved post-election. And the way that these truthers rallied around the motherfucker. And then the fake assassination attempt. I mean, all that shit. Which now is coming out, right? Too late. Somebody just sent me a thing on it. I'm like, yeah. Somebody's talking about it now, but I'm like, where were you fucking when it mattered, right? Like, when I covered it day fucking one because it was so obviously fucking fake, right?
Think of it. And it's not just NATO. You know who else didn't help us? South Korea didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Australia didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Japan.
What?
We've got 50,000 soldiers in Japan to protect them from North Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea to protect us from Kim Jong-un, who I get along with very well, as you know. Do you notice he said very nice things about me? He used to call Joe Biden a mentally retarded person, okay? So
That's not very nice.
don't tell me about your stuff. Joe Biden, he said he's a mentally retarded person. He was so nasty to Joe Biden. It was terrible. But to me, he likes Trump. And
He likes Trump. And, anybody who likes Trump gets their way with Trump. So they get to have their way with Trump. All right. So, again, this was not a war where we were attacked by Iran. I mean, and it should tell you as a president why they don't want to get involved. Like, wars are usually, they can't sell this to their people. They can't justify this war. And they don't want to get bogged down in this fucking nightmare of a situation that's far worse than Iraq and Afghanistan. You can sell to your people that America is protecting you from Russia, and America was just attacked on 9/11, right? And so, that's something they could sell to America. America was attacked, to sell to their people. But they can't sell this shit to their people, especially when it's going to cause gas prices and energy prices, and it's going to cause economic crises in all these countries. And to be a dick about it, which Trump is being, I mean, they're all waiting for Trump to go. They know that he's done. And then they'll just deal with another president who will have to do damage control and apologize. And the MAGA people, I mean, God knows what's going to happen to the internet. And they shut down all the fucking MAGA people, blame them for Trump, right? And all of us who are, associate all the people in the truth community. I mean, they fucked us so bad. And it's the dumb fuck, it's all the fake truthers who didn't call Trump out on his bullshit assassination attempt that have caused this problem, right? Because that would be the margin if elections were real, and of course they're not. Trump is getting elected one way or another, but still, being on the right side of history just so you don't look like a piece of shit, right? Like, you don't have to come out and say, "Oh, fucking, I got fooled," like fucking, I'm retarded, right? Just like Joe Biden. Speaking of retarded, holy shit. So I'm just scrolling through Twitter, and they're starting to post all these fucking things for his press conference.
Iranians would be mad if you stopped these attacks. But why would they want you to blow up their infrastructure, to cut off their power? Wouldn't that be punishing Iranians for the actions of the regime?
they would be willing to, and it's suffering, they would be willing to suffer that in order to have freedom. The Iranians and we've had numerous intercepts. Please keep bombing. Bombs that are dropping near their homes.
Jesus Christ. Who's saying that? Who's saying please keep bombing? No one says fucking that. And I don't know how desperate. I mean, the Iranian regime, I've talked about that, my personal knowledge of Iranian people who don't like the regime that America caused. Like, this is America's problem. This is what America did. But you take down a government, which Trump knows because he said that these things don't work. The regime change doesn't work. You take down a regime, and then what do you have? Well, in most cases, you have something that's worse. Thug rule, criminal rule, cartel rule. And it's more bloodthirsty, and there's less of a lifestyle, and it's a fourth world country, and it's a fucking mess. And that's what you're going to have. So either way, these people are fucked. And by bombing them and taking away their electricity, that's not going to help anything. This is going to cause starvation, these other things, kids dying, and, just anger towards America. These people already hate America, many of them, and they should, because America's fucked them over time and time again. And they hate Israel, which they should also, because of what Israel represents and has done to them and to the Muslim people. And so this is going to come back. Like, long after Trump's dead, there's going to be, payback, and who knows what's going to happen, right? But this is not a solution, because they're not going to open the Strait of fucking Hormuz. They're not going to fucking do it. It would be stupid to do it, right? No matter what he does, the only way to kill America is to stop the Strait of Hormuz opening up, like to destroy America's credibility in the world and tank the economy and make America lose, in the infighting that's happening in America over this bullshit war. And so, you have one option. It's fucking put your tail between your fat fucking legs You fucking Jabba the Hutt motherfucker and back the fuck up and just like cower because you fucked up, right? That's the only thing you could do. Or, I mean, go and tell everyone Israel, fucking blame it on Israel, cut off Israel. I mean, but either way, you're fucked. You're going to lose the midterms. And he's mentally incapable. He says stupid shit like this, right?
And we've had numerous intercepts. Please keep bombing. Bombs that are dropping near their homes. Please keep bombing. Do it. And these are people that are living where the bombs are exploding. And when we leave and we're not hitting those areas, they're saying, please come back, come back, come back. These are the people. I don't know what they do. All I can tell you is they want freedom. They have lived in a world that you know nothing about. It's a violent, horrible world where if you protest, you are shot.
Okay. You mean like in America? You just shot some protesters. So, all right. Like this is like I'm just scrolling through. Like this is a disaster. This whole fucking press conference.
And we, just so you understand, the people of Venezuela, they say if I ran for president of Venezuela, I'm polling higher than anybody has ever polled in Venezuela. So after I'm finished with this, I can go to Venezuela. I will quickly learn Spanish. It won't take too long. I'm good at language. And I will go to Venezuela.
Wait, you're good at language? Why wouldn't you speak Spanish already then? Right? Like, what language are you good at? Because the number one language to learn in America is Spanish. It's like, it's the second language in America is Spanish. Like, are you good at French? Do you know French? What other language do you know? You don't know any fucking language. You're not good at fucking language, right, bro? How are you good at fucking language? You know Spanish. At fucking 80, you're going to learn Spanish and you're going to go over there?
I run for president, but we're very happy with the president-elect that we have right now. The people that are running it.
Yeah, your puppet that's there temporarily. Like, it's just so fucking bad. This is weak, low-energy Trump, right? Like, when he calls other people low-energy Jeb and Sleepy Joe Biden, like, Trump's falling apart here.
Because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this. But we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah. Stone Ages.
Stone Ages. Like, if he really fucking does this, I mean, this is, I'll be covering this, so this video won't be up until,
CNN fake news.
Are you willing to make a deal that does not include reopening the Strait of Hormuz, or is that now a top priority?
I would say it's a very big priority because, see, that's one thing that's a little different than other things. We can bomb the hell out of them. We can knock them out for a loop. But to close the strait, all you need is one terrorist that somehow has a truck loaded with, because you can carry them in trucks, large trucks, a water mine, drop them in the water, and now you tell people.
One terrorist can drop a fucking. You need at least, they're heavy, right? One terrorist. These aren't terrorists. These are people who live in Iran. These are soldiers. These not terrorists. You're a terrorist, right? You're trying to use fear to get your way, push your way. Israel is a terrorist country, using fear. These guys use fear on their own people, so they're terrorists for there. But you're attacking them. They didn't do shit to you, right?
That own ships that cost $1 billion to. Don't worry about the mine. You can do that even just by saying we put mines in the water. So it's not like the rest. We can knock out their military. We already have. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their Air Force completely. We've knocked out 158 ships in 3 days. We've knocked.
All right, just, but you would have known this going into it. Like, that there would be something that they could devastate the world economy with one terrorist in a truck and some mines. Like, if that's what you're saying is, that's all you need to close the Strait of Hormuz, and closing the Strait of Hormuz is massively devastating to a world economy, and that you're going to be begging them, like, fucking, they got you. Like, and I mean, there's other things they can do. They can close the Red Sea with the Houthis? Like, there's things they can do with this that, you can't combat, right? And Like, this is fucked. Even if you bring in ground troops, then you're saying you can't do anything about it. You're admitting that they have you. And so if you go ahead and bomb the infrastructure, what are you going to do then to get the strait open? Like, you know, like they have to go wrong with you. They could just, they've entered fuck you land. And then, you know, and you're going to try to blame them for closing the Strait of Hormuz when nobody thought that you should have fought this war in the fucking first place. I mean, in terms of other countries and the rest of it, right? Headline to this little blurb was Trump talking about his first gay orgy.
They came in so fast and so hard, and these guys knew exactly what to, let's go, come on, get in, let's go, pwah. They came one right after another, not at the same time. They don't want to come at the same time. They had to come right after each other. They didn't have any room. They came in
So that gay actor dude is going to have a field day with this one. Okay, he's just losing his shit throughout this thing, right?
It was so easy. I terminated that, and then the B-2 bombers. And I did one other thing. I had killed Qasem Soleimani.
You ordered the military to kill somebody. That's not killing them, right? I mean, it's like, you know.
Who was an evil genius. And the reason I did it, I heard he was going to knock out 5 of our military bases.
Did Israel tell you that? You heard from Israel, did you? Is that who told you?
And had he lived, I believe we would be fighting perhaps a different Iran right now, because he's never been replaced, you know. And I did one other, but this one was not picked up. Osama bin Laden. If you read my book, I said you got to take him out 1 year before the World Trade Center came down. So I wish you'd read the book.
Yeah, that wouldn't have stopped that because it fucking, unless you took Israel out, right? Like, look at this depressed, sad motherfucker beaten. He's lost his shit. Like, he's just out there fucking going senile. Like, he's imploding right in front of you. The stress has gotten to him. He's lost his fucking marbles. Holy shit. This is him on Easter. Did he do that today? He didn't do that on Easter Sunday because he wanted to play golf. But here.
You know, Biden would use the auto pen. He'd have an auto pen following. You know, Joe Biden, he didn't sign. He was incapable of signing his name. So they'd follow him around with this big machine. You know what it was called? An auto pen.
You need a big machine to be an auto pen? Like a big fucking giant robot with a fucking Sharpie? Like, I mean, what do you think of auto pen's a big machine? Why is he telling these kids about Joe Biden being an auto pen, right?
And he'd have the auto pen signed for him. He'd take the paper, hand it to his guys, they'd sign it with an auto pen, give it back. Not too big, right? Better to sign this stuff.
Dude, can you not fucking put us in the middle of your weird fucking obsession with Joe Biden?
Okay, that's the fake news.
I made Air Force.
Who likes the fake news? Does
He's talking to these kids about the fake news and Joe Biden's auto pen.
anybody like the fake news?
No, we don't like the fake news. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, you don't even have to say anything. The guy's just lost his fucking marbles. Okay, Tuesday, April 7th. All right. So, there's all that stuff that happened yesterday, right? And I was just going through the videos from yesterday, the one previous to the one I just showed you, the one before the one he was talking about auto pen to the kids, which is also kind of like this. But he's like some guy whose life has gone down the tubes, and he's drunk at a bar, and he's just bragging to everybody. You know, he's in that stage where he realizes his life is a waste and that he's a fraud, but he doesn't really realize it, and like he feels like victimized in some way, and like life is unfair to him. You know, he's just sitting in some bar drunk and talking about how great he is, and you know how all his accomplishments, and you know how nobody loves him, and these things, right? Like, that's what Trump's like. He's in a desperation mode, which means to me he knows he's fucked, right? Like, he's just his bragging is now almost, you know, where before it was like grifting and he's bragging to sell himself to people, and now he's just trying to rewrite history when everybody thinks he's a loser, like someone who's been publicly embarrassed and shamed, and he's, coming out with his, whatever the fuck this is, right? So there's two things I saw last night, and another thing I just saw this morning. I mean, this press conference is a disaster. There's so many clips that are, would be disturbing, but there's just the whole thing. And also, there's a difference between, well, let's just show you this one here.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said earlier today during the egg roll that you would like to take Iran's oil, but Americans want U.S. forces home.
Correct.
What's that trade-off?
If I had my
Does it
choice,
take too
if I had my
much time?
choice, yeah, because I'm a businessman first. With Venezuela, as you know, the war was over in about 45 minutes. And we have great people running Venezuela, very good people. I mean, the relationship is good.
Best people in Venezuela.
And we are a partner with Venezuela. And we've taken hundreds of millions of barrels, hundreds of millions. Over 100 million barrels already is in Houston, refined and out. And paid for that war many, many times over, many times. You know, the old days, to the victim. Okay, you know that. To the winner belong the spoils.
So he said victim, and he meant to say victor, right? Like, this is fucked up on a lot of levels. Let's go back here.
Is in Houston, refined and out. And paid for that war many, many times over, many times. You know, the old days, to the victim. Okay, you know that. To the winner belong the spoils. Go the spoils. And I've said, why don't we use it? To the victor, go the spoils. And we don't have that. We haven't had that in this country probably in 100 years, because even the Second World War, you look at the Second World War, we didn't have it with the Second World. We helped rebuild all those countries. We rebuilt Germany.
Yeah, so, but that was money. Like, that cost, we got money for that. Like, there was companies that grifted off the American taxpayer. And so, like in Iraq with Halliburton, Dick Cheney had a company that he was CEO of called Halliburton. And then after the Iraq War, Halliburton got all these contracts. And he had stock options, so he made $60-80 million off of that, whatever it was, right? And that was the year 2000. That was 2003 money, right? 2004 money. 20 years ago. So it was, what it's worth now. And then, there's other ways that the oil was definitely glommed onto, but by private equity, right? So they socialize the expenditure, which is the taxpayers pay for the war, and then they privatize the reward. Like, these wars have always been about that. But they don't say that out loud. Like, if you don't want to be considered an evil empire, which we have been, you can't pretend that these wars are for profit. You're doing good. We're trying to stabilize the world. We're trying to help these people from their bad leadership. It's always bullshit like that, or some bullshit false flag thing like they did in 2001, like that kind of thing, right? There's always that. But he's saying it right out now loud that to the victor go the spoils. And if you're going to create a war that was unprovoked, Iran wasn't doing anything to provoke a war with America. Like, anything that Iran did to America, that they keep on citing these incidences, these attacks on the U.S. coal or whatever the fuck he talks about. It's nothing compared to what America did to Iran when they created regime change in 1963 and installed a puppet leader in the Shah of Iran, which led to the current regime, right? So you've taken away a good government, and now they got a shitty government. They had a moderate leader who was democratically elected, and it was a modern place. Like, Iran was not what it is now. So it was, it was something that was done that was, again, for British Petroleum and a private company, that America had no business being a part of that, CIA. And so, they were just fucking around with these countries and doing regime change and just doing shit like fucking, evil shit. But you don't say stuff like that. To the victor goes the spoils, right? That you're going to go in and you're going to create a war out of nothing. You're going to make some bullshit excuse. Not even the false flag thing. I mean, even like his ear, like the piece of his ear should have been taken out. Like, they should have cut out a piece of his ear. because it'd be much harder to dispute. But he was too much of a pussy to do that, right? And so, like, he just, faking it without even. I mean, that was so badly done. The Ketchup Gate, assassination attempt. But he's just saying shit, right? To the victor go the spoils. You can't say shit like that out loud, like his Easter Day tweet and all these things. It shows you that he's, Joe Biden was senile, but he was completely handled. Like Trump talks about Joe Biden in the auto pen. Joe Biden had Parkinson's, and he was worse off than Trump, but they were puppeting him. They've unleashed this fucking crazy guy, this fucking senile fuck who was already narcissistic. And, he's being handled in a way by Israel. I mean, they're making him do the war. And, whatever people who are there, the powers that be. But, he's just being let loose, right? To just say shit and, to embarrass himself and embarrass the country. And, like, no one knows what to do with it because people are so degraded themselves mentally and people are so fucked in the head, right? So.
About Germany telling us that, well, it's not their war. We had nothing to do with it. They wanted me to go and tell them everything I was doing. We didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have told them, they would have leaked it, and we wouldn't have been nearly as successful, possibly, right? But to the victor belong the spoils. So we haven't heard that in, I think, maybe hundreds of years.
So you started talking about World War II, and then he got into it how Germany, which is totally unrelated, right? The modern government of Germany and World War II. Like he's saying we rebuilt Germany, and now, like, they didn't, like rebuilding Germany. And this is about him. This is his war. This isn't an America war. Americans aren't on board. Americans don't want this war. Trump supporters want it. And, like there are people who are just so fucked in it, morally, they don't care if we go in. I mean, the majority of Americans, I would say, they might complain. Some of the liberals might pretend to be upset about it. But they would say, oh, this is a bad war. But deep down, they want the oil prices. They want something that's good for them. Like if this was about taking oil, they don't mind what's happened in Venezuela if that means lower gas prices. But this means higher gas prices. This means possibly economic collapse worldwide and just, repercussions that we can't even conceive of that are happening already. And so if he was going to do spoils, most Americans wouldn't be against that, which is sad, right? I mean, the good thing about Trump in his first term, he didn't do any of these bullshit wars. And that's what I praised him the most about. He stopped all these bullshit wars. But now he's way worse than any other president in my lifetime. These are wars of aggression and wars of, he wants to take things, right? From basically innocent countries that are not, there's no justification for this war. A war of something that, like, we all know is bullshit, coming up with bullshit reasons when everybody knows it's about Israel. Like, maybe people don't have a problem with that, like some of his right-wing dopes, but, like, he's lying to the people, and everyone's just got used to it. Like this, people have got used to this level of degradation in the White House. Like, people got senile old guys who can't even fucking go out there and convincingly lie, right? Like, their lies are easy to see through. Okay, so then there's this one.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for this great opportunity.
These reporters are now having to kiss his ass. Like, they have to, bow down before him, or they don't get into the fucking. He's going to go after some guy for asking a real question. He's good because the guy's from New York Times.
Country it has super army. You make a difference, Mr. President. Thank you for your greatest leadership.
Thank you for your service.
I have two quick questions, Mr. President. What was your reaction when you learned that Kurdistan region had resumed exporting oil to the international market with your support as United States of America?
Well, I expected that. We've gotten along with the Kurds for a long time, so I expected that.
Another question, what would be your reaction if the Iranian people rise up against their regime during a ceasefire, Mr. President?
Well, they should do it, but again, the consequences are great. I mean, they were told if you protest, you will be shot immediately.
Yeah, protests don't work. Like they have a strong military, and they're not fucking. You can't. There's no.
You saw what happened to the young wrestler. He was a great champion, by the way. He was a great wrestler, one of the top in the world. And he and his two friends were hung. And all they did was say a little bit about liberty. They wanted liberty, and they were violently executed. But the number is up to probably 45,000 people were killed. So, when somebody stays in a house, when they know if they walk out of the house to protest, they'll be immediately shot and killed. And they issued that, that was publicly
Protests don't fucking work. Like even if they, got to protest, it wouldn't matter.
issued. It's not a secret. That's why
I mean, I don't know if this is true. Like this is just Trump's bullshit. He doesn't give a shit about these guys, right?
people say, oh, well, why are you doing this way? We can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We got regime change. We're dealing with a much different regime than before. We're dealing with different people. They're smarter. I think they're sharper. And far less radical. We have regime change, but we didn't do this for regime change. We did it for the fact, and my view was very simple. I saw somebody said, oh, he doesn't have a plan. I have the best plan of all, but I'm not going to tell you what my plan is. They want me to say, here's my plan. We're going to attack at 9:47 in the morning, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to, and if you don't do that, they say, I have a plan. These people know what the plan is. Everybody here knows what the plan is. But it's very unfair to say we don't, because I don't mind being insulted. I've been insulted for many years.
Yeah, you totally mind it. Okay, so this is the first thing that I saw. They show this on the news, like somehow I don't know where I was. Well, maybe at dinner. I don't know. Like there's these clips. So there's so many clips. Now he's saying that he always says this. We don't give out our war plan, and of course you don't do that. Like you don't tell the media your war plan, but people leak it anyway, but that's still whatever it is. But really, there's not much Iran can do to stop it. They could move some things if they know, like this specific target's going to be hit or whatever. But, in terms of the missiles, in terms of the air superiority, America has, better military equipment. We have a better military. But no one's talking about the war plan. They're talking about, and no one expects you to even know the war plan. I mean, people do, but I don't. Because remember, he says he gets bored. Remember, that was I'm not going to show you that clip. I showed it so much. But he was talking about the signal gate and the guy from the Atlantic, and he said the guy left the chat because he was bored. And of course, he didn't leave the chat because he was bored. Because this was his, he was all of a sudden a celebrity. A guy I never knew his name was all over the media for a week, and he was in the Atlantic, which was a dying publication, and he revived it. He was an editor-in-chief, and Pete Hegseth had included him in the fucking signal chat. Remember that fucking nightmare? And Trump said the guy was bored because Trump gets bored. They say he doesn't like to listen to his briefings, and so he's not a strategist in terms of military strategy. He's not good at this kind of thing. He's good at grifting. So, and he has a short attention span. What you're expected to have a plan about is the Strait of Hormuz. You're supposed to have an overall understanding, right? So, in Trump's world, when he said with the victors come the spoils, he believes that Iran should just give up. You've been beaten. You're not fair. You're not playing by the rules. So I bombed the shit out of you. And you're not capitulating. You're not showing me your belly. You're not begging Trump for to stop bombing them or whatever. So in the Strait of Hormuz, he can't control, and he's losing his shit over it. And he should have known about this, but they didn't. He just not thoughtful. He didn't listen to the people that told him what this was going to be. And of course, he's being ordered by Israel for whatever reason. If it has to do with the Epstein files or whatever reason, whatever they have over him, whatever reason he's going along with this, right? He's he doesn't know about any of these things. Like he's not supposed to know the war plans. Like you go as president to your, to the War Department. It used to be the Defense Department, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They have various scenarios that they've mapped out of how to strike Iran. I mean, they've had these things for 50 years. They're always updating them, but they have all right. This is what we can do. These are our options, right? And the president decides which plan to go with. He doesn't come up with a plan. He's not a chess master. He doesn't know how to fucking strategize. He doesn't even understand the weapons. Like, they present the various things. And so there's different people. There's different people in the Pentagon. Some people who are going to say, hey, this is a bad idea. And what he's supposed to figure out is, what are the consequences? What could they do? Okay, we can do this to them, but what can they do to us? And the Strait of Hormuz, I heard about it a year and a half ago through people who said this is what's going to fucking happen. People commenting on the news. And I was like, oh, that sounds bad, right? Like, I'm like, that doesn't say, and I heard this guy said Iran's a different animal than Iraq. And so Trump thinks they're not playing fair because they're beaten and they won't surrender. Like, he thinks, all right, we've beaten the shit out of them, they won't surrender. And, he doesn't have a plan now for that because he can't bring in ground troops. He wants the oil, but he can't get it. If he destroys the oil, that's going to be, drive gas prices even higher. And so what he doesn't understand, like, which he's supposed to, is that winning the war militarily doesn't mean you win the war. Like, I was talking about how Afghanistan had bankrupt these empires, Alexander the Great, Russia. It was known for that, right? These nightmare places. Like, you can go and win the war. You can kill more people. Vietnam. We didn't win the Vietnam War. The Vietnamese, North Vietnamese still exist. And they're in power there. We had to leave, after years of, just spinning our wheels. I mean, the Taliban, we didn't win the Afghanistan war. The Taliban are now stronger than ever. They now have our equipment and training, all that stuff. So we, those were not wars that we can say we won. The outcome isn't what if you don't achieve your goals, right? If you have goals of making Iran safe and you leave it in, a rich country with resources, with a lot of people, and you leave it in thug rule and in disarray. I mean, maybe Israel will achieve their goals. They'll get America to fight their war for them. Yeah, that's, but maybe that doesn't work out for them either, right? You don't know how it's going to, and these things, they keep on praying like God's going to make it happen. When Trump, like Tucker Carlson's going to admit that he doesn't even believe in God, that Trump doesn't. Like, he's not a godly person. He's finally going to admit it. Like, we'll get into that in a bit. But, like, he's not responding to the plan. Like, do you have an overall plan, and is it achievable? Like, what are your real objectives? And, if you come in with a bullshit reason like it's about nuclear weapons that nobody believes, you keep on repeating it, and I mean, everyone knows you're lying. Even your fucking people know that that's not the reason. People know this is a lot to do with Israel. Everyone knows that. And so at the end of the day, we already have pissed everybody else off. Like, Trump's being a dick to all the countries who are now suffering because of the Strait of Hormuz, and then these things that are already bummed about the whole tariff thing. I mean, America is like, he's bullying all these countries and no one likes it. And, America's credibility, Americans, are viewed as hostile. Like, it's just a bad thing. Like, so that's, you've lost the way that these Lego videos are going out. And then the division in the country's gotten even worse. And politically, you're going to get fucking hammered. You're going to get fucking slapped at the midterms. And there's going to be all the impeachment and all the fucking thing. You're firing people left and right now. You're a year into your fucking term and you're already firing all these people who are incompetent. You've had American citizens murdered by federal agencies. You have division like we've never seen before. No one's ever seen these numbers. That shit, right? Like, the world's like, everything's going fucking tits up for you. And, you didn't have a plan. Because it isn't about who wins the military battle. It's about who comes out stronger. And who gives a shit what happens to Iran. I mean, in terms of, people should care about the Iranian people in Iran. But like, if Iran goes down, but they take you with them, Iran's suffering, but no one wanted them to, beating the shit out of Iran isn't like some big deal. Of course you can do that. You're the number one military. You spend more money than all these other countries combined. America does. You have the number one military. Of course you're going to beat them militarily. But what happens afterwards, right? So he's lost his shit. And this idea that he's saying that these guys aren't playing fair, they're open the Strait of Hormuz. Like, we'll get into that with Tucker Carlson again. Like, he's just a whiny little bitch, right?
by the fake news, but you can't. It's so bad for people that are so you just saw two great and John Ratcliffe, three unbelievable people. They have a plan. Every single thing has been thought out by all of us.
So you thought there was going to be gas prices that are going to go up to $10 a gallon, like that's part of your thing, and then all the inflationary things that come afterwards. That was part of your plan. Fucking high gas prices were part of you factored in the Strait of Hormuz and you did it anyway. Is that what you're saying, you dumb fuck? Right? Like he's lost his shit. Like he doesn't. I mean, to come out, when he came out and said we don't have money for Medicaid and Medicare and for child care, we need that money for wars. Right? When he said that, that's political death. That's political suicide. But the midterms are already fucked. They already know the Republican Party is just like, we're fucked. And they're going to be fucked for years because this is all going to be laid at him and the MAGA's feet. And God knows what that's going to do to the internet and censorship when the fucking Democrats take over. Again, fucking Trump. They allowed free reign now for a little bit, and they're going to tighten it back up and destroy, what was, he's fucking the truth community, which is, whatever. And fuck all you fake truthers out there. Fuck all you fake truthers that went along with this bullshit. You pretended this guy was your guy. We'll get to Tucker Carlson in a second. Okay, so this just popped into my feed when I was pulling up these other things this morning.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the question. Deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this question. Like, you have to thank the fucking guy. Right, but he's going to ask a real question here.
Attacks on civilian.
Yeah, let's go back.
For the question, deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure violate the Geneva Conventions and international law.
Who are you with?
I'm with the New York Times. Zolan from the New York Times. Are you
failing?
Are you concerned?
Circulation way down at the New York Times.
Are
What's
you
going on
concerned that your threat to bomb power plants and bridges amount to
No, not at
crimes?
all. No, I'm not. I hope I don't have to do it. But again, I just said 47 years they've been negotiating with these.
So it's war crimes. These are fucking war crimes, legitimate war crimes. And, the people would say, the world's going to look at you and say you're doing war crimes, that you're a fucking Hitler. Trump's going to go down as an actual fucking Hitler, like he's what he's doing here, like these wars of aggression and, and he's not stopping, like he's trying to do Cuba now and, just everything that he's done. Gulf of America, Department of War, like he's just a fucking nightmare, it's a mess. And he's like, he's an impetuous king, like some guy he won't listen to. Like, that's war. Like, the guy asked a legitimate question. That these are the Geneva Convention calls these war crimes. And you're violating that, right? Which means that, that shit's going to come back to you. See, what people don't understand is that there's a collective karma. All of us in America are going to suffer because of this guy. Doesn't mean whether you're a liberal Democrat and you hate Trump. You voted for Biden, who led to Trump, right? This is you're supporting Biden led to what's happening now. You're allowing that fucking nightmare Biden thing that they did, that bullshit Biden thing that they did, lead to Trump 2.0, right? But even if you didn't vote at all, we're America. We're all Americans, and we're suffer the consequences of, again, this is the year of accountability. So, there's there's collective karma, and there's human karma. Like you can be a great person, a saintly person, and not be, you can be above all this stuff, and you're still suffering because there's collective debt, there's collective wrong, there's human beings are the bad human beings, the ones that do all this stuff are we're all connected, right? We're as a species, and so these are real war crimes. Like, this is a real war crime, and the guy asked a real legitimate question. Calling New York Times fake news doesn't make that not so, right?
People, they're great negotiators, and because they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And if somebody that takes
taking out their infrastructure has nothing to do with them having a nuclear weapon or not.
My place someday is weak and ineffective, which possibly that will happen because we had numerous presidents that were weak, ineffective, and afraid of Iran. We're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And if you think it's okay for people that are sick of mind, that are tough, smart, and sick, really sick, from a policy standpoint, from a any which way you want to say. Mentally, these are
These are mentally disturbed people. So I get to bomb their critical infrastructure and deprive children of water and families of electricity and bridges and things so food can't get to people and children will starve and the country will go to shit. I get to do that. I get to destroy their critical infrastructure because they won't open the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, that's what you're threatening. It's open the Strait of Hormuz. That has nothing to do with a nuclear weapon. You know, it's a nuclear weapon against you. It's about you losing. And once you do this, and again, we're waiting for this. So, like, I'm early here. This is Tuesday morning. This video is not going to go up till Wednesday at 9. Tonight at 12 p.m. his deadline runs out. He's going to start bombing critical infrastructure, and we're going to talk about that when he does it. But it's horrific stuff that he's doing, right? And once you do that, that doesn't mean they're going to open the strait. Again, he says you just need one terrorist with minds like you can divide the country. The country could be fragmented, and there could be a bunch of people like fuck America. We're still going to close the Strait of Hormuz. Like they don't give a shit, right? And that the Strait of Hormuz, he can't open it. Like he can't open it. And then they still have all their army. Like it's just whatever. And you're going to invade their country, and it makes, like even Alex Jones was saying this. It makes the people, the civilians, rally against evil America when they know that this is happening. They can blame the regime, but reality, they know America's evil. They know America's fucked them over. Like I know Iranian people, they know what's happened with fucking Operation Ajax years ago. They know what Israel is. They know worse than we do what Israel is, right? And the Muslims, and they've been beefing forever, and so they know this is. The people might not like their regime, but it makes them. The enemy, the enemy of my enemy is not, this is, they still don't like these other countries, right? They don't, so they will rally they'll rally even for a government they don't like. And when you bomb shit and their kids are starving, these things, I mean, hatred towards America globally, when people are suffering from the Strait of Hormuz being closed. And so to come out and lie and interrupt this guy who's asking a legitimate question, you fucking punk ass bitch, right? He's a little fucking nothing, and he knows he's fucked, and he won't stop. Like you sacrifice yourself. You're already done politically. Everyone knows you're a piece of shit. Like everyone's turning on you, even fucking piece of shit like Tucker Carlson and these other people that should have known better. They're all turning on you. Like you have nothing. You got a bunch of dumb fucks who don't know any better. And I mean, it's like, 15, 20% of the population. You got Fox News. Like everybody else knows, they don't want to go down with you, all these other countries, right? They know that you got, 2 years left. I mean, you're going to be a lame duck after the midterms. You're going to get hammered. And then it's just going to be like, you going up and whining and whatever it is and complaining. And it's going to be the Joe Biden presidency all over again. There'll be all these lawsuits and impeachment and, all this stuff. And people be bailing on you, all these people, your fake friends, all these people that used to kiss your ass. Like, it's just, you're done, right? I mean, even if he survives that physically, like he's got real fucking heart problems, real health problems. He's old. He's gonna, he's a pussy. Like he won't go down with the ship, whatever. But for him to these are real war crimes.
People, if you think I'm going to allow them, and powerful and rich, to have a nuclear weapon, you can tell your friends at the New York Times, not going to happen.
Look, they're all.
It means violating international law.
Quiet. You no longer have credibility at the New York Times.
So you don't get to ask a real question.
Because the New York Times said, Trump won't win the election, and I won in a landslide. I won every swing state. New York Times said, Trump won't win the election. New York Times has no
You think you have credibility, right?
The credibility they have is it used to be all the news that's fit to print. The old gray lady, it was great, but they're running on past fumes, and you can't keep doing that. You have to be able to give the correct news. And people like you, who I know, are fake. You're fake.
Okay, so this popped up, and I want to get to Tucker Carlson because it's kind of a monumental moment. But this popped up, and then I want to show you something else too that leads into that. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. So you would have to nuke them. I mean, that's because, they nuked Japan, and Japan's doing great, right? Like, or Japan was I mean, there's been ups and downs, but their civilization is certainly not gone, right? And so, I mean, like, but just think about the madman that says this stuff. I was saying to my wife, went for a walk, like I was talking about being like a drunk at a bar, but he's also like a guy whose wife has left him, and he's still like trying to appeal to her and tell her how great he is, right? I mean, just he goes on these narcissistic, braggadocious rants, and then these other threats, and just losing his shit. It's like a guy who's in the middle of divorce and he's going extreme, and then has to fucking back down and all these things, or apologize. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. Don't say you don't want it to happen, because you're the one who fucking brought this up. Like, they're not doing what you want them to do. Like, you could admit defeat, or you could go, and once you do this, what are you going to do? What are you going to do next? Nuke them? Like, what are you going to do to keep the Strait of Hormuz open? Because it's going to be fucking a nightmare now forever. There'll be pirates, and I mean, having border countries around the Strait of Hormuz is important to control control it from these kind of things. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different and smarter and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. I hope a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I hope he's not talking about America, because that's what, there's consequences to these things. He might not believe in God. He probably doesn't. I don't know what, he certainly doesn't. In a way that would be, and that there's some kind of consequences for your actions, and he thinks he's doing great, and they can rationalize and convince this. But this is evil shit. This is evil empire shit, right? And so there's no, Also, I saw some of the Morning Joe ate breakfast, so let me see if that's up yet. Tuesday at 8 p.m. I mean, if his goal is complete surrender and making them give up, if they don't give up after this, well, this is what Iran had to say.
Remains publicly defiant. Tehran yesterday rejected a 45-day ceasefire proposal from mediating countries, instead putting forward its own 10-point plan that calls, in part, for a permanent end to the fighting. Iranian officials, meanwhile, are warning that if President Trump carries out his threats, the consequences will be far-reaching and will be met with a, quote, regret-inducing response. At this hour.
So I don't know if that's, just blustering on their part, but what do they have to, would make America regret? I mean, America's going to regret this anyway. The world is. They're going to regret Trump being a piece of shit. Like, he's lost his shit. He's a failure, a loser. He's the guy who goes bankrupt, right? The guy who's bankrupt 6 times, right? Makes bad decisions. A grifter and just, psychologically impaired motherfucker. And, now he's gone senile, and he's been given free rein to take down your lifestyle, which is, partly because of the controllers, and partly, and more importantly, because of the divine plan. Like, that shit's all happening. So there's that. But, this is fucking bad, in terms of just people behaving badly. Like, again, as much as this is part of a divine plan, he's playing a divine role. I mean, it's, humanity at its worst. It's like, he's a demon, right? So let me show you this. This is, Tucker Carlson's going to get into Trump not being a godly person, and really, in his way, calling him a demon, which, he should have done years ago. And he's going to be held, he needs to be held accountable for his bullshit. But first this, because this leads into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump, accompanied by the Easter Bunny.
Accompanied by the Easter Bunny. It's a fucking clown show. This was from Monday, the day after Easter, so he... There's the Easter Bunny here.
Master Gunnery Sergeant Kevin Benier, accompanied by the President's own United States Marine Band, will now honor America with the singing of our national anthem.
Okay, so it's like that's fucked. Look at there's the devil horns behind him. All right, there's something that's, then Trump starts talking about Iran here. Let me find that. You know, Trump obsesses with things. So he goes in, this is basically the beginning of the speech. You know, you got fucking Melania here. You know, there was a guy, Webster Tarpley. He was kind of an, you know, there used to be these reporters that were more truthers. He used to be on when Alex Jones had more quality guests. There's these guys who, you know, they were more truther type, legitimate reporters, like they were media people that did independent shit. And Webster Tarpley did a thing on how Melania was really a man. And Trump sued him. And the guy had to apologize and say it wasn't true. I mean, he had to, you know, it was, you know, whatever it was. But, you know, Melania. And then this fucking guy, the Easter Bunny, has nothing to do with Christ. And we're going to get into all that. Like, I'm going to get into, you know, the understanding of, you know, how corrupt people follow a demonic religion, right, that goes full demon. And Trump isn't religious at all. So he's coming out. It's Easter. So it's, you know, Monday. It's he was rumored he was dead. He went golfing. And he could, you know, not talk about Iran and anything else. This could be just about Easter and Christ, and or just, you know, he's there for the kids. There's an Easter egg hunt. There's a whole thing. This is a kid thing, right? The Easter Bunny's there. And he does this instead.
Been done before. We've broken every record on the stock market. We've broken every record in our military. And what about the rescue that
Well, what records are there? Like, what do you mean?
took place yesterday? What about that? That's something that you rarely see. You know, they were giving me a briefing about that. And they said normally when you're in very hostile territory, and I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran, they're capable fighters. They're very tough people. And there are others like that. You don't mind when the enemy is weak, but that enemy is strong.
You don't mind when the enemy is weak. Well, they are weak compared to America, but they have, you know, they can hit you, right? It's like, you know, the bear's going to get the honey, but it's going to get stung, right? And, you know, and so compared to a bear, a bee is weak, but bees can inflict damage and pain, right? You know, there are a lot of animals like tigers, usually these big cats, tigers, cougars, lions. They like to attack from behind. Like people will wear masks on the back of their head, like leopards and tigers, because, you know, they can kill you pretty easily. And they can kill animals pretty easily, but, you know, you can inflict damage, right? Like, you know, they might kill you, but you could take out an eye or you could do something. I mean, you know, no animal wants to get hurt, right? And so, you know, like what he's talking about here is bullying, because he isn't attacking China or Russia like that, because there would be real fucking consequences. Militarily, certainly, possibly nuclear war, especially with Russia, but also economically and these other things, right?
Not so strong like they were about a month ago. I can tell you, in fact, right now, they're not too strong at all, in my opinion, but we're soon going to find out, aren't we?
What?
But when a thing like that happens, where a pilot shot down, in most instances, you're really not able to go in, because you'll go in with 200 people and lots of jet fighters and helicopters, and you really don't have a chance. They get shot down. You lose 200 in order to pick up one. It's a horrible thing, but it's very rare that you can do it. And what we did yesterday is we picked up, not one, we picked up two. We kept the first one quiet, and we were able to keep it quiet for about a day, which made it a lot better. But those two pilots were incredible, brave, and we thank them, and we're going to be having a news conference.
So this is fucking his Easter Day message. It goes on from there. There's one thing with Pete Hegseth here.
One downed airman evaded capture for more than a day, scaling rugged ridges while hunted by the enemy. When he was finally able to activate his emergency transponder, his first message was simple, and it was powerful. He sent a message, God is good. Shot
Boom. He said that. He said God is good.
down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice, all of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday. Flown out of Iran as the
Holy shit. So he just compared this thing to Jesus.
sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn, all home and accounted for, a nation rejoicing.
Jesus Christ. Like, they've lost their shit. All right. So let's get to Tucker Carlson here.
Millions of American Christians voted for Donald Trump when he ran for president in the last election, and millions more Christians around the world rooted for him to win. Many still do root for Donald Trump. Now, why is that? Because of his personal piety? Well, of course not. Trump, to his credit, has never claimed to be personally pious, especially.
Yeah, he has. So don't Trump to his credit. That's what people believed. He was a good Christian, right? And so why didn't you talk about this? Well, then let's get to this part here.
Religious in any sense. They voted for him and they still support him because he seemed like a protector. He seemed like someone who might save them from the growing and highly aggressive agnosticism, if not atheism, of, say, the technology class or the bureaucratic class, godless nations, nations of other religions that oppose us. Donald Trump seemed like someone who would protect Christians from that.
Okay, so let's get to the first part. Like, Tucker Carlson, all these people went along pretending he was a Christian, right? They're all fake Christians because they want political power. And Tucker Carlson's a fake Christian because, well, there's two things here, right? There is people who follow Christ and connect with God and, have some spirituality, some personal relationship with Jesus or, internalized relationship with divinity, kind of spiritual, like, religious, but also somewhat spiritual. And then there's people who follow the religion, right? Who follow this structure, the organization, that are there for the, to be attached to an institution, right? The institution is what they're worshiping and what they honor, right? The religious structure and the religious hierarchy, and they go to church and they listen to what's they're told to do, and they obey to whatever extent. They think they do a good enough job, but that's up for debate. But they're not worshiping Jesus. Jesus is one thing, and Jesus and God is another, right? And then there's there's real divinity, which is, beyond Jesus and beyond what people think of in terms of the God of the Bible, right? And there's, having an internalized relationship with God, where God instructs you what to do, you connect with your soul, these things that I talk about it constantly. But, there's this middle ground where there are people who actually, pray to Jesus and have a connection with Jesus, and they are true followers of Jesus to whatever extent. And then there's the people who create their own Jesus, right? Your own personalized Jesus, right? In that song by Depeche Mode. So each person, Jesus is whoever you think he is. Some people have a white Jesus, some people have a black Jesus, right? Or whatever, way that you want to view Jesus. And then the religion itself, there's the structure of the religion. And you do whatever you do with that, right? But that's all lower stuff, and it has nothing to do with God. And the religion itself is, there's a demon presented in the Old Testament that's demonic, but the religion itself becomes demonic, right? And so, Tucker Carlson is, of all these shills, of all these, fake truthers or whatever you want to call them, all the media people, he's, mainstream media people, he's probably the best one. Like, he's smart and he's able to structure good arguments, right? Like, he's become better than he was. He used to be, he used to just talk all across the board. He's got the weird laugh and some personal idiosyncrasies, but he's the best one, right? He's better than Candace Owens. He's better than Megyn Kelly. He's better than Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan does good interviews, and he does things that aren't necessarily politically oriented, and he has some things, whatever. He's better than all these people, right? He's the best one, like the most, he's one of the smarter and more articulate people in terms of the mainstream. And he puts out, sometimes quality takes, quality content. And he's been good on Israel, right? But the problem for him and all these people is they knew this going into it. Because if you were a Christian, and I'm, any of the things that I've just described, but if you're a person who believes in the Christian religion, and you're, a Paula White, and you're these other people, these fake reverends, these non-godly people. But if you're any, these evangelicals, and you know that Trump isn't a real Christian, but he's made a deal with you, because this is what Trump does. He's a negotiator, and he makes deals with people, and you think he's going to protect Christianity because you're supporting him. And Christians, he needs Christians. He needs Christian votes, right? But if you don't think he's going to Judas you, Trump Judas everybody. Trump is a fucking Judas, just like Charlie Kirk was a Judas, right? These are, people that will sell out their followers, their people, for whatever. They market you, right? They use you as a demographic, right? There's a point where Alex Jones put in his FAQ, in the InfoWars FAQ. Somebody found it some years ago, some truther. And he said in there, like, this is a guy who he was so anti-government and so against the government. And there was a point where he was against, he was a little bit more of a Republican, but he talked about the left-right paradigm, and he had guests on that talked about this. And he talked about how the government was doing this, the government was doing that. And he said in there that he would talk to the government and give your information up if they made him. Like he put in the FAQ. If you put information on, he like stated it. They stated that if the government asks, we're going to give them your data, right? Like there's shit like that. There are, people who are just frauds and fakes and, will sell you out, right? But tell you how bad and evil something is, but then capitulate with that evil organization and is really working for it, right? Tucker Carlson has connections to the CIA and all these things. But all these Christians who think that that Trump was going to protect them, only somebody who believed in it would protect it. Like Trump doesn't have a dogma. Trump has the dogma of Trump, right? Everything's about him. And what's better for him? What's his best self-interest? And if he has to sell out Christians and Christianity, he would, for a better deal. And so, like, to think that, to be that desperate and think that, your religion's failed. And the religions failed because of what I said in the beginning. The religions failed because, people don't like it and don't want to do it, and it's compromised itself, and it's gone against Jesus' teachings. Like, Jesus had a particular point of view and reason for being here. And it was for a specific group of people. It was for the, mostly the Jewish people that were in Rome, and, this was now become Israel, this part of the world, the Middle East, and he was dealing with those people. And he had messages for those people that were around at that time. And part of that, which is every spiritual person's goal, is to help people connect to divinity within them, right? The kingdom of heaven is within. And so he, set down his teachings and his legacy and whatever, and then it was violated. It's been warped and twisted, and now it's something else. So people who follow Christianity aren't following Jesus. They aren't connecting with the real Jesus, like Jesus' soul. You can pray directly to any higher developed soul. You can connect with any soul and ask information, and you'll get it one way or another. If you're not a gifted medium, you'll, whatever, and most of us aren't. But in terms of having dialogue, and that takes a lot of energy, and so that's a whole thing. I've talked about the whispers of the brighter world, people who are direct channelers, but you still have a way to connect, and God will answer you in one way or another when you pray directly to God. And that's what Jesus wanted, and every spiritual person wanted. And what they're doing now is an abomination. It's demonic, right? But all these people that think Trump was going to save them and voted for a demon who made them promises that he clearly wasn't going to keep. And by doing that, the people who were religious and, believed in God in their way, whatever way that is, have failed because they elected a demon, right? And they're supporting a demon. He's doing demonic shit, and he's doing it in the name of Jesus and God, who he doesn't believe in, right?
Who was committed to the free exercise of religion in this country, and who was also committed to ending abortion. Whether or not he himself opposed abortion, whether he was pro-life in any meaningful sense, didn't seem to matter. He would appoint justices that opposed abortion, that thought Roe v. Wade was unconstitutional. He did that. And that he would basically carry the flag for their issues, and that he was sympathetic to them. And they support him on that basis. Can they still support him? That's the question. And that's
no, like they should have never supported him, and you should have never supported him. Like if you like, it's being authentic. Like this is what I'm talking about. If you're an authentic Jesus follower, then you have an authentic relationship with the soul of Jesus, his essence, and our God, right? Like if you're a true divine following person. Other than that, you're just following man, constructs of man that are demonic and go against God's will. And people just don't get that and don't want, they want to be tied to an institution. This is part of why they do it, right?
Question Christians should have begun to ask themselves on January 4th of this year. And that was the day.
No, you should have asked a question when he faked the fucking assassination attempt and blatantly was lying to you. Which meant that, like, if he's lying to you about that, he'll lie to you about anything. So you can't trust that fucking guy. And you should have asked it. Like, you shouldn't have supported him. Just because Kamala Harris sucks worse. Like, no matter what Kamala Harris did or was going to be as a president, no matter how much she embarrassed America, no matter how much she shit on herself, and even Joe Biden, we wouldn't be here. Like, they're using Trump, and they're using you and all the people around you, all the people associated, all the MAGA people, all the Charlie Kirks and the Erica Kirks and Turning Point to TPUS gay and all these things. They're using all of that stuff so they can blame you and Trump for what's going to happen. They're going to destroy you with what they're doing. Trump is going to give them the weapons to destroy you, your movement, right? Because this is really bad. And, the truth community, too. There's going to be censorship. You're going to watch what's going to happen. Like, they're going to use this as a weapon against you. You don't think they will? You don't think that they purposely doing this? You don't think that they picked a Trump and not a Democrat? And they're going to bring back all that shit, all that gender stuff, all that stuff, right? Like, I'm going to have to go back and fucking privatize all my fucking videos again, right? Like, that's like what happened during COVID. And, all that stuff. Like, they're bringing in a new world order, and they're going to blame it on fucking you. And then they're going to go after you because of it, because they're going to blame you because you went along with this. You played along with somebody who was obviously a fucking demon in fake Christian clothing, right? Like, he was your enemy dressed as a fake Republican. And so, like, you guys all supported it. Like, that's when you should have stopped doing it because, even if he got elected anyway and he's, like, just you personally, like, going to all the fake truthers that went along with the bullshit assassination attempt that was obviously so fake, right?
That the president announced the arrest of the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, who was, no question, an anti-American leader and a socialist, not someone most Americans liked or really had cause to like. So the problem is not necessarily that Trump was against an anti-American leader. In fact, that was a benefit in the eyes of most of his voters. The problem was why we did it and why the president told us he did it, and that was for the oil. So in the days before that operation in early January, the president tweeted out, sent out on his Truth Social account, and also said in public, we're doing this because we want the oil.
And that's actually something positive because he, let's see, we'll get to this point here. Okay, so he's going to talk about his tweet, which I saw separately. I saw the beginning open of this thing. Here's this part, because this is also to do with the religious.
Joyful and peaceful moment, and yet that peace yesterday was shattered. That's not an overstatement. It was shattered for many observant Christians by a statement that the President of the United States put out at 8:03 a.m. Eastern Time on Easter morning that said this, and we're going to read it in its entirety, not in outrage or self-righteousness, but honestly in horror. Quote,
in horror, these Christians.
Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. 3 exclamation points. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. All caps. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump.
it's kind of great, like because it's so like it's great because this is who he is. Like he's displaying as a person who worked as a counselor. Like I have a master's degree in counseling, and then as a preceptor, where you would read somebody's spiritual inner condition, and so doing that work, and something that I've always been fascinated with. What makes people tick and why do they do the things they do, right? And when you're doing a psychological evaluation or you're reading somebody's spiritual condition, you're doing something to try to figure out, the bullshit, because everyone puts on a false front. I talk about this extensively in my book, The Choice, right? People can put out a fake version of themselves, right? Like Trump pretending to be a Christian or a Republican or, just a good person or whatever it is, right? People have their work personas and, people have to put on masks and they want you to put on a mask. They want you to put on a false face. They want you to pretend to be something. Everybody's Instagram account, everybody's social media. But what's the real motivation? Who is the person really? And most people have lost touch with who they are. Like they don't even know who they are, right? And so, Trump has always displayed who he is. And still people will follow him, which is kind of hilarious, for that. But this is who he is, right? He's not getting his way on the Strait of Hormuz. He, talks about how great they're doing, but it's still not enough, right? You have a situation like in sports where you have a great quarter of football, basketball, and you outscored the other team. Boxer hits the other guy with his best punch, right? And it doesn't do shit, right? The guy just like shakes it off. Then you're fucked, right? And so like Trump's in that situation where all this is predicated on Iran giving up and capitulating with what he wants. Or they go into have a massive war, which America didn't want this war. So they're not going to want the massive war. And the rest of the world doesn't want. He's got no support for anybody. His allies are everyone's just waiting for him to go and die and get the fuck out of there. To be not president anymore. And, and this is a one-time thing with his horrible people. I mean, Pete Hegseth, all these people, they're fired. They're, either Trump will fire them or they'll be fired, by the next guy. And there'll be court hearings and there'll be, Democrats will take over. And so, in all that, if you're expecting Iran to fold and you're doing all this shit and they don't, like, they just don't have to surrender. Like, if you can't go in with ground troops, you just bomb the shit out of them and they're going to come back and, did not give up, then you're fucked. Like these, they're not giving in. They're not giving in. He's trying to make them. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards. Like that's a desperate motherfucker. Like he can't, make these people capitulate and do what he wants them to do. This is why I call them the controllers, right? There's a time where I went for a walk in the park with my kids. And my second youngest daughter, who was, kind of willful, wouldn't get in the car. We're about to leave, and she wouldn't get in the car. And, when you have all these kids, we had, my ex had 2, so we had 6 at one point, and, just even having 4, and they were all young. And, when I had the first 2 kids were born on consecutive Mother's Days. They were Irish twins. And we would go to a store and one would run one way and one would run the other, like when they were toddlers. It's just hard to, when kids are young and they don't follow directions and, they're, whatever they're doing, like it's hard to deal with that. Like people who work in daycares or have big families, all these things. And so my daughter won't get into the van. So I go, all right, we're leaving, this thing that you do as a parent. And my daughter called my bluff, right? And she ran into the fucking woods. And, I'm not leaving her there. Like there's just, it's a... And so if you're doing something and you're trying to bully or use force or you're doing whatever you're doing to obtain a behavior from someone, you got to hope that they buy into it. Like if you bluff somebody, what if they call your bluff, right? And, or even if it isn't a bluff, like this is all Trump can do. Like the next thing is ground troops. And, they have a massive military, over 1 million people. And so, and they've been waiting for this for a long time, and they're praying and focusing. They're using their God-given force to manifest something. They want to take down Israel and America because they know that they've been hurt by the sanctions and the fucking bullshit over the years. All the stuff that happened, Operation Ajax, all the bullshit Israel's done to them, and they are focused on that. Like, there's a hatred and there's a we're taking you motherfuckers down attitude, and they can do it. Like, even if they don't have the same strength military, you can find a way, right? Like, you see these things find a way. And Trump is, like, helpless about that. Like, he doesn't have stamina, and he doesn't have the backing of the American people, and he's out on a fucking island. If they don't cave, then he's going to basically have to surrender to their demands, right? Like, they're not doing it. And so, he's got to commit war crimes now. And if that doesn't do it, then what's he got to drop a fucking nuclear weapon on them? I mean, and then be condemned by the world, be thrown out of the fucking UN. I mean, just, all these countries turning on America. Like, and then him, then having to face the gas prices and the people here and all that shit, right? He's lost. Like, he's lost. He's, again, he doesn't have God. He doesn't have anything. He's just, a piece of shit that runs things into the ground, right?
Now, a lot of people reading that imagined, of course, this can't be real. Did the President of the United States really just write that? And it is real.
It is real.
Maybe the most real thing this president has ever done.
Yeah, this is who he is. Like I said, he's been pretty upfront about it, though, right?
And also the most revealing. On every level, it is vile. On every level. It begins with a promise to use the U.S. military, our military, to destroy civilian infrastructure in another country, which is to say to commit a war crime, a moral crime against the people of the country, whose welfare, by the way, was one of the reasons we supposedly went into this war in the first place. They're being killed by their government. We have to rescue them. And now here's our president, not even a month and a half into the conflict, which we are not winning, by the way, because the Straits of Hormuz are not open. There's one way to keep track. That's the measurement. Saying that we're going to use our military to kill the civilians of this country who didn't choose.
So, like, you didn't know this was going to happen. You didn't know this is who he is.
The war, they got nothing to do with it. They're like civilians everywhere. Blow up their bridges? Bridges on military bases? No, just bridges. Bridges that people cross every day to go to school and work and to worship, and yes, church, because there are over 1 million Christians in Iran. This is their Easter too. And power plants. Not the power plants attached to missile factories, okay, but civilian power plants in a country of almost 100 million people. What happens when a modern country, and a country that's...
All right, so we get this part. So that goes on for about 11 minutes, right? How wrong it is. But now he gets into how this violates Christianity.
Pardon me, the ironically named truth continues.
I was just talking about how dare he name these things truth, right? Truth Social, right? Because it's just, Trump's lies, right?
There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight. How dare you speak that way on Easter morning to the country? Who do you think you are? You're tweeting out the F word on Easter morning?
Yeah, that's really not the point.
You'll be living in hell. As if hell is a place. Hell is a condition. And
you left out, you crazy bastards.
This is an example of that condition. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. So obviously you're mocking the religion of Iran. Okay. If you seek a religious war, that's a good idea.
This is what, you supported this guy. Like, how did you not know he was a piece of shit? Like, how did anybody not know? Like, how did anybody not see this coming, right? Like, in whatever frame or fashion. Now because you're offended as a Christian. Like, this guy's didn't hide anything. This is who he's always been. This is how he treats people. He's about himself first, and he's melting down. Like, he's caught in a fucking trap where he's, there's you're in like a funnel. You're being funneled down to failure. You're swirling down the drain. He's like caught in a fucking toilet bowl, right? And there's the inevitable flush is coming, right? The flush is happening. And as you're going down the drain, you're doing what you do, which is be as hostile as possible. That's what Trump is, right? This is who he's always been.
But by the way, no decent person mocks other people's religions. You may have a problem with the theology. Presumably you do if it's not your religion, and you can explain what that is.
Yeah, well, you were mocking religions when you said, because this is the real one, right? When you were talking about yours, and they're all fake. Like they're all not to do with God.
But to mock other people's faith is to mock the idea of faith itself. And we should never mock that. Because
okay, so it's again, unless you understand, if somebody's practicing a false religion, like if somebody's doing something that's wrong, then it's not mocking their faith. It's mocking their delusion. They're following something delusional, right? You can have, faith in God, but you think about all the people that, the ones that were offended by priests and reverends and rabbis sexually, or, any of the people who were violated in the Muslim tradition by the religion itself, right? People were tortured and killed by religious clerics, and people executed by the hierarchy of the religion, and, all the bad things religions have done. People lose their faith in God because religion represents God. And that's the problem. Like, you have to transcend that. People who say, well, God is fake because the Bible talks about circumcision, for example, right? The guy Penn and Teller, Penn is a famous atheist, and he mocks God because of how stupid the Bible is, right? But just because the Bible's stupid doesn't mean there's no God. Like, just because these religions have done bad shit doesn't mean there's no God. It means that the religions have, been compromised and are being used against people. And they're using the idea of God and people's belief in God against them. So these religions should be mocked, right? This is why, these people should be mocked. Because they are believing in something false. I mean, they're going down a path that leads them to the construct of hell. Because they're not following God. They're following something that's demonic.
At its core is the acknowledgement that we are not in charge of the universe. We did not build it. We won't be here at the end of it. We can destroy life. We cannot create it because we are not God. The message of all faith at the biggest picture level is the message in our Bible, which is you are not God. And only if you think you are do you talk this way. But it's not just mockery of Islam.
Yeah, so he just said Trump thinks he's God. And so that's, I mean, we could go on here, but you get the idea. But again, like, you should have known this. Like, this is on all of you, like, fucking, that supported this guy. It was clear what kind of person he was. And again, you didn't have to vote for Kamala Harris. You didn't have to vote at all. But admit what you're seeing here. You could vote for Trump saying, oh, this guy's probably going to be better for me than somebody else. That's perfectly fine. Like for self-interest. That's what voting should be anyway, because voting is not a solution to the problems of humanity. It's about who's going to promise you this and who you think is going to be better for your demographic or for you. And so that's all it is, right? But you should have known. Like, you shouldn't have supported this. You shouldn't pretend that this guy was going to be the solution, and that there was a solution. If you really believed in God, you would believe that there's a spiritual solution, and that spiritual solution doesn't come in the form of a politician. The spiritual solution that Trump represents is taking down a demonic system, not just America, but a global system, which has to happen. There has to be, pain and suffering for people to. People right now don't care because they're addicted to their, if you have a full belly and, you have water and food and you have, basic needs met, and you have distractions and you have, things, whatever it is, sports and TV and the internet, no matter how bad things get, you're not going to rebel. You'll have little gay little protests or whatever it is, but nothing substantial. But, like real things have to happen for people to change. And people aren't going to change. And you won't aspire to be better. Most people will not aspire to be better as long as they have things, material things that'll keep them distracted and, away from. I mean, it's pain and suffering that drives people towards God. Unfortunately, it's not. People are happy and wealthy people for the most part are not spiritual people because they have material, things, and they're not, they don't have to rely on God. People who are smart and capable and are good at things, they can rely on themselves until they get cancer, until something befalls them. But as long as they feel strong and strong people, I mean, it's hard for them to fall before God. But like people, you have to have a natural compulsion inside you, like you want something more. You're not, the distractions don't work on you. You're not stimulated by things. You're not, but you're not a sociopath either. There's some part of you that craves, something real, something divine love, something that's not a part of this illusionary planet. And so, that's the real solution. That people are like that. People are, that don't get distracted, can't be compromised or paid off or bought by trinkets and, 70 pieces, 30 pieces of gold or whatever it is. They can't be compromised. But that's very rare, and people are, compromisable because the world is alluring. And so this is what we've had. People have, whatever they want, they can be bought or be threatened, things being threatened to be taken away, or things being threatened, or given something, fear and temptation, right? Which religions rely on fear and temptation. We'll give you this if you do our religion, but if you don't do your religion, you're going to get that. You're going to go to heaven if you do it. You're going to go to hell if you don't. And so this is, how they get you, right? But in reality, if you have a relationship with God and you find your soul's path and you, evolve to a higher level of consciousness, you can see through all that stuff, and it becomes, the allure of planet Earth is not as great. But, people don't want that and aren't choosing that, so, we have to go the hard way, right? You have to be, in a sense, forced. You have to have the things that are distracting you taken away from you. And so they created Donald Trump. And so this is a reflection of, Trump is the monster that's created by the, and everything about Trump and everything about the world and these other countries and other leadership, all these monsters are what's created because people don't want to connect with God, and they create grossness, they create negativity, they create abominations, they become egotistical, which is a demon, and these demons all come together and destroy themselves, and then in the aftermath, people are like, yeah, I think we should have tried the other thing, right? Maybe we should have done the other thing first. Why did we have to make it hard? And that's what human beings always do. And to the point where human beings no longer will be like seen as a viable, I mean, we have potential, but it's potential that we'll never realize. And so it's either going to go one way or the other. Either we're going to realize our potential, our spiritual potential, or we won't. And, until that happens, there'll be suffering. And then eventually, we'll go up, or we'll be taken out of the evolutionary chain. All right, so there's that. So let's end this with this here. Because remember, Tucker Carlson said that Trump's never said he's a godly person. But they're trying to make this a religious war. They're doing all these things. He's got all these people around him, and it's just all fuck. They're all full of their own bullshit, right? But this is what he says here.
Very much. You've said glory be to God in this conflict. Do you believe that God supports the United States' actions in this war?
I do, because
And
God is good.
Because God is good, and God would be a fan of Trump. Because, if God's good, he'd be a fan of Trump. Otherwise, fuck that, he's fake news. God would be fake news if he's not a fan of Trump, right? Like fucking...
Do you believe that God supports the United States' actions in this war?
I do, because
And
God is good. Because God is good, and God wants to see people taken care of. God doesn't like what's happening.
Who the fuck are you to speak for God? Who the fuck are you to speak for God, you piece of shit? This is, again, I mean, he's a fucking demon. You haven't gotten he's a fucking demon. I don't lie. If I say Trump's a demon, he's a fucking demon, right? Because, I mean, people call names or say things or whatever. But what I mean by that is someone whose egos run amok and he's been given demonic powers. But demons can be a part of and are a part of many of the divine battles, right? There's demonic kings in the Mahabharata. There's demons in pretty much every religion in the religious stories. There's just, there's these Asura kings, right? I was possibly an Asura king in a past life. I think I was. So, there's things you play a role, right? And so sometimes you play a villainous role. And, that is what it is. But as people, you're supposed to look at this as an example of how not to be personally. You look at Trump and say, I don't want to be a Trump, right? I don't want to be a Hitler. Like this is the examples that are given, right? I don't want to be a Judas, like the soul of the person, whatever their relationship with God is, whatever work they're doing, But I mean, anybody should be able to see that God is not backing this, other than a way to destroy America and the capitalist system and the rest of it. God has a plan, yes. So this is part of the plan, but the plan isn't to crush Iran and make America more. Make America great again, right? That's not God's plan. That's silly, right? That's not going to happen. America, like you look around and there's not very much to say about America that's good. I mean, our lifestyle, our planet, the things. But in terms of the people, we're degraded. I mean, anybody who's lived a long time, any of us who are older, we've seen things get worse, right? And people who were old, my grandparents, people who were the previous generations, they saw things get worse, right? This has been going on before I was born. We're degrading. Like you go back to and as bad as the slave owning people were, and the founding fathers and these people, it's degrading. It's going in the wrong direction, right?
I don't like what's happening. Everyone says I enjoy. I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy it. These two guys don't enjoy it. People say, "Oh boy, they're so tough." They don't want. They don't like. I don't like seeing people killed. I've ended 8 wars. Nobody's ever done it. The person who won the Nobel Prize came to me and said, "You deserve the Nobel Prize."
So this started off being about God is good, and then it became about Trump not getting the Nobel Prize. Like he's doing this because God's good, but also he'd like a Nobel Prize, please. Like he's just like, this guy.
She announced that when they announced, they said, goes to Maria. She's a great person, really a good person. She said, no, this is ridiculous. They gave me the Nobel Prize. President Trump ended 8 wars. I could go over every one of them, including India and Pakistan, where the Prime Minister of Pakistan said, President Trump saved from 30 to 50 million lives. That makes me much happier than what we're doing right now. That makes me much happier. We have one more to end, by the way.
Okay, so, like this is a demon, right? He started talking about God and then somehow it became about a prize. Who gives a shit about a prize? Like, you want a fucking prize? Give him a prize. Give him a fucking prize. Someone give him a fake statue. Someone will go down to Mr. Trophy. Get this guy a fucking trophy. Get him some fucking courage for the cowardly fucking lion. Give him a heart for the fucking Tin Man. Give him a fucking brain for the scarecrow. Like, give him all those things. Let's go see the Wizard of fucking Oz, right? Somebody give this guy a fucking medal. Give you a fucking medal. Somebody give this guy a fucking prize. Someone pin something on his fucking chest. Tell him how fucking great he is. What a fucking peaceful man he is. Give him something. Like, just, he needs it. He needs something like that. Because that would tell him he's not a piece of shit that he knows he is. He's not a villain. He's not a fucking demon like all the statues he's building of himself. He's not a fucking usurping God's position. All right, so I'm going to end this for day. And then tonight, he's going to bomb some critical infrastructure. We'll see what happens at 8 p.m. And then I'll come back tomorrow morning and finish this fucking video up. And then we'll see, the beginning of the end for America. I mean, we know this is coming one way or another. If it doesn't come tonight, it'll come another night. There's no way around it, right? And it's not because of Trump. It's because of America. It's because of all of us. It's because of the world. It's because of egos. And it's because people don't want to connect to the divinity within them. All right, so there's that. Okay, so my wife and I went out and we were driving for a little bit. And I played her, part of the Tucker Carlson thing. And we listened to part of it I hadn't heard before. So as Tucker Carlson goes on talking about the tweet and all this stuff, he makes it a lot about humiliating Christians and doing it on Easter Sunday, and a lot of, reading a lot into it, conspiratorial, that this is about Christians and taking Christians down, embarrassing Christians, and even the stuff to do with the Muslims. I mean, it's that is whatever it is. The whole Christian angle of it. Believing that everything revolves around torturing Christians and all these things, which is, a part of the the martyrdom stuff that's in all these religions is, the being a martyr. My mom was a martyr. Like in a way that people talk about, not the way that they talk about like a saint. My mom was very religious, but, people who are martyrs and suffer, and because they think they're supposed to, the whole thing about being born a sinner, that's a whole nother thing, right? And which I don't, I think it's just, what I think about that, probably, what I think about that. But when he was talking about how Trump said everyone should watch Mark Levin. Like Mark Levin is a Jewish commentator. They feature on Fox News quite a bit. And he's like a Ben Shapiro. Nobody would watch him. No one in the right mind. Doesn't have a fan base. And he's, hyper aggressive. He's a complete shill for Zionism. He's a total Zionist. And Trump said everyone should watch Mark Levin. And then he showed a clip of Mark Levin basically saying that when you start doing the math of how many soldiers are going to be killed, how many of your soldiers, how many lives are going to be lost in a ground war, you'll make the decision that Truman, whoever dropped the bomb, did, because the math is just better if you just drop the bomb. And he said it in a way that wasn't totally saying drop a bomb on Iran, but it was very clear that after they take out the critical infrastructure, the next step is, unless you go on a 20-year ground war that you may lose, right? The only option that Trump has, the only humane option, the only truthful option, is to just turn around and quit. Just basically get out of there, and they'll open up the Strait of the Moves. And, but Trump's not going to do that because of pride and not wanting to look like a pussy, even though he is a pussy. And so, that's where we're at. But that would be the only real, decent thing to do, right? The only good thing to do. But if they don't do a ground war for 15, 20 years that you may or may not lose, win, and, China and Russia can do what America did to Russia and the Ukraine and deplete American treasure, American weapons, and just bankrupt us. We can't afford another war. Americans don't want it. And, it would go disastrously. I think Trump maybe at least understands that. He's so isolated. And so after you destroyed all their critical infrastructure and they don't cave to you and they don't open the Strait of Hormuz and they just say, fuck you, then what do you do next? Drop a bomb? Drop a missile on them? Like, that would be the only next thing to do, right? And then, wipe out the whole fucking country and have radioactive fallout in these other places. And so, Tucker Carlson then pointed out, Trump says everyone watch Mark Levin. And then Mark Levin says, yeah, it makes sense to drop a bomb. That they're teasing this out, and it's the obvious next step. All right, so it's getting close to dinner time here. I didn't do a sitting today, and I'm not going to. I'll do one tomorrow, I think. Whatever. My other channel. So I have a decision to make. I'm going to be covering what happens tonight at 8 p.m. And what that's probably going to be, there'll be a day off for me. I'll put this video up on Wednesday night. I won't do anything on Thursday. And then there'll be another video on Friday, which I'll cover all the reaction, which won't be good if Trump, I guess Trump's rejected their peace proposal. They've rejected his. And now Trump is going to, he's on the hook to do this. Either he's going to do it or he's not. If he doesn't do it now, this is happening one way or another at some point. And so that's where we're at right now. And we'll see, we'll see what happens. It's not going to be good no matter what. It's like, we're heading down a dark fucking path, bro. All right. So we'll see. I'll probably put whatever happens in the beginning of the video. Like, you'll know by the end of this video what's happened. And then I'll just wrap it up on the other side here. Or I'll put the stuff in after this. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. Either way, I'm going to cover it, and we'll see. You'll be watching it. You'll know what my decision is by where I put it in the video. But right now I'm trying to figure it out. All right. But I won't be able to figure it out till tomorrow. Anyways, that's it for now. Okay, I just went through the comments, and I thought I'd add this before I forget. Someone left a great comment. What's the difference between Iran and Vietnam? Trump knew how to get out of Vietnam. And so that's platinum joke there. All right. I'll check in again tomorrow. Okay, this is Wednesday, the 8th of April. And there was a ceasefire. It doesn't look like it's gone Trump's way. The art of the deal, this art of the deal motherfucker here.
This morning, President Trump backing off his threat to wipe out a whole civilization, agreeing to suspend attacks on Iran for 2 weeks once the country reopens the Strait of Hormuz. Just 90 minutes before his self-imposed deadline, the president writing on social media, this will be a double-sided ceasefire.
Double-sided ceasefire. It only works well if it's both parties.
Saying we received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it's a workable basis on which to negotiate. Iran's foreign minister responding, saying their military will allow the massive backup of tankers in the critical strait to pass and finally deliver oil to the rest of the world. The White House says the ceasefire won't go into effect until Iran reopens the strait, and it's unclear when that will happen. The president has been under immense pressure to find an off-ramp in the final hours before his deadline, delivering an ominous warning that a whole civilization will die if Iran does not make a deal.
Okay, so he's saying he's willing to work within their 10-point plan, right? Lifting all primary and secondary sanctions on Iran, continuing Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. military withdrawn from the Middle East, an end to the attacks on Iran and its allies, the release of frozen Iranian assets, a UN Council resolution making a binding deal. This one has it here, this person. A commitment to non-aggression, continued Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance of uranium enrichment, lifting of primary and secondary sanctions, termination of all UN security resolutions and AEE Board of Governors resolutions, compensation payments to Iran, withdrawal of combat forces from the region, cessation of the war on all fronts. Added to this, Iran can continue attacking Israel. I think of any other word but humiliation, right? So, they're not saying everything here in The Guardian. I'd like to see, some other, with all of these things. Here's Fox News is not going to have it. Newsweek, maybe? I don't know. All right, so here's a 10-point plan. Non-aggression guarantees a fundamental U.S. commitment to guarantee it will not attack Iran again. The removal of all primary U.S. sanctions on Iran, secondary sanctions, we already saw that, Strait of Hormuz control, nuclear enrichment, U.S. military withdrawal, regional ceasefire, immediate and hostilities on all fronts, including Israeli strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon and conflicts to Iraq and Yemen, compensation for damages, unfreezing assets, international resolutions, and binding peace deal. This is worse than the Obama deal, right? This all started when Trump terminated the Obama deal. And so Trump is so desperate because I think he kind of knew he couldn't strike the critical infrastructure. I think that would have fucked. I think that was just a bluff, even for him. But who knows? He's lost his shit. But this is bad. This is a bad deal, right? This is a bad deal. Let's go to Pete Hegseth here.
Your comments may have put American troops at risk.
No. I try to be nice up here, but you did listen to what I said, right? I laid out the objectives. We believe we've accomplished them, and it's a historic military victory. And
it's a historic military victory where you're he takes that 10-point peace deal, which I can't imagine this is going to hold. But if he's in Trump, like they say, he's looking for an off ramp. The American people are miserable. The other countries are fucking pressuring him. He's losing fucking allies. He's got his supporters who are a bunch of dumb fucks who are just, going along with this. I guess there's a poll saying he's still got support from his core supporters, even though all these people are bailing on him. But here,
President Trump has the option as the commander-in-chief to compel an adversary to the table, which is precisely what he did. And at the end, he chose to say, you know what, I'd rather talk to you at the table than obliterate your capability to export oil and fund your terror regime.
and basically kill millions of kids and shit, right? Like fucking, I mean, taking them back to the Stone Ages, like that's, unprovoked. Like there was no, we didn't get attacked. There was no, it's just all bullshit, right? People know that this is, an Israeli war. Nobody's seen fucking Netanyahu in weeks, right? So there's all that stuff that's happening.
So he did make that choice. That was his choice. He was a president of peace.
What the fuck are you talking about? He was threatening to bomb critical infrastructure, that was civilian infrastructure, in a country that didn't attack us, right? There's nothing there. And if they were going to go back to their nuclear enrichment program, that means they've lost. Like that's the one thing he has to get, right? Like he has to make it sound like there's no, chance of them getting a nuclear weapon. If he couldn't open the Strait of fucking Hormuz, and he was desperate, and he threatened these things, which, I mean, this would have been war crimes like fucking, international outrage, which is already there, more anger towards Israel, like it's just a fucking disaster. Like all the things you don't want. And they was backed into a fucking corner. And he's saying he's willing to negotiate that 10-point plan. Like what is he hoping to get out of it, right? Like what if they're like, fuck you, no, we'll just go back to it. And he's got to come back in and go destroy critical infrastructure and deal with that shit. And who knows what Iran's got, if they do have a retaliation. And maybe China and Russia get involved. Who fuck knows? Like it's fucking bad, right? And this is about pride. This is about embarrassment, about humiliation. At this point, right? Like this is, when people realize that he's the supporters won't realize shit because they're dumb fucks, but like everybody else realizes that this is going to be worse than the Obama fucking deal, right? I mean, that's this is an epic failure. And everyone knows that Iran could just close the Strait of Hormuz and fuck everybody. And now they're emboldened. Israel doesn't have anything. Israel doesn't have anything like the Strait of Hormuz. They don't have some, they just got like weasels and fucking Mossad, scumbags and, blackmail and Jeffrey Epstein and shit. They don't have like, real assets that they can, do something to, blackmail the world or whatever it is, right? Make America back down. I mean, it's just, the whole thing's fucked. I just don't think it's going to hold. So let me show these other clips I have. So right before the peace deal.
And again, when the president says that he thinks that God supports the United States, when we take out tyrannical dictators, when we kill Ayatollah Khamenei, a mass murderer, when we try to destroy the forward function of terror groups, he is correct about this. See,
you don't know anything about God. There's no God in you, you little fucking dweeb. My first kind of introduction to Ben Shapiro, I'd seen him talk a little bit. I was like, this guy, how does this guy have an audience, right? Like, he's just so weaselly and weird. But, just repulsive, like these repulsive people. And, of course, it's manufactured. It's fake. They prop this guy up, but he hasn't got real fans. And he was talking about that song, WAP, which was kind of a disgusting song, Wet Ass Pussy. And it was, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. He was talking about it. And he made the fucking mistake of saying that his wife was a doctor. And he asked her about wet ass pussy. And she said to him, oh, don't worry about that, dear. It's a medical condition. It's not going to affect you. Right? You and wet pussy will never interact. Like you're in two separate universes. It's a medical condition. They have the problem that, you're not going to have to deal with. Like he owned himself in a way, like he's, talking. Just a total dweeb. And so, but here he is. These guys shouldn't be talking about God. They know nothing about God. Like they have no relationship with God. They use God as a justification, as a weapon. It's a manufactured God. Like it's just, God, you bow before God. God doesn't, support your shit. Like when people trying to say, I'm doing this for God or, whatever. Like it's a personal thing. Like you don't try to convince other people that, right? Like when I talk about it, when I mean, I just had a dream with Dodgy and Master Chargy, which I'll put in the, like a thing like this. And, I have these epiphanies in my own meditation. It's for me. Like the message, there are things that I have to, they're instructions for me, right? Other people have to find a relationship with God and judge for themselves. Like that's what everybody should be encouraging. Every spiritual person, at least. That each person develops an internal relationship with God and finds some way to communicate with God. And then everybody can be convinced through God, not convinced. See, they're trying to convince you through their words. Oh, God told me to do this. Well, go ask God, right? Like, well, why do you, okay. Well, I'm going to go ask God, see if I think that's true and what I need to do. Like, you're asking me for your support or to believe you. And yeah, why don't I just ask God? If you're talking to God, why don't I talk to God, right? This kind of thing. But the God's behind this war from the standpoint there would be only one reason to destroy America, like destroy the world's, the demonic system. Like that's the demonic system's coming down. That's God's will, right? It's because it obviously goes against God's will, like the system. And each person can interpret that for themselves, but it's very clear to me, right? But this fucking guy.
Here's the thing. You're seeing a lot of people who have, shall we say, a casual acquaintance with Scripture. Like, who admit that they had not fully read through the Bible until 2 to 3 years ago. Or suddenly, it turns out, bishops in their church. It's amazing how quickly they have learned biblical literacy. These are the same people who will sit across from guests who tell them that the Bible is actually socialist and anti-capitalist. These characters. Well, it turns out that for those of us who have spent a lot of time engaging.
Well, Jesus did turn over the money tables, right? So it's certainly anti-user, right? Usury.
With the scriptures. And here I'm talking specifically about the original Hebrew scriptures. It turns out that the...
Yeah, which is just retarded. I mean, it's demonic worshiping. The being that they call God in the Old Testament is a demon. And, everyone has to deal with that. Like, you're not going to hear that anywhere else. Like, there was a reverend, like a Protestant preacher, had a church. And he used to listen to my videos. And he wrote me a few times. And he was like, I know everything you're saying is true. Like he was having an existential crisis. And this is, when I talked about this thing in a much more light way than I do now. But, it's this religion, the book itself. Like I said earlier in this video, you're either a follower of Christ or you're a Christian, right? Like you're a person that follows the religion, which is not run by Christ anymore. That, Christ is not, they've manufactured their own personal Jesus about this, right? Or you connect with his soul and his essence and his teachings. And the majority of Christians are the former, they're the ones that go with the religion and they're not really connected to Christ and his energy. And this guy, the Old Testament.
Psalms, for example, are filled with calls to crush oppressors and deliver the weak and needy from the hands of the wicked and to break the arm of the evildoer.
Yeah, and circumcise the shit out of everybody.
Literally, zero things in Scripture suggest that Western civilization has some sort of a duty to uphold the rule of wicked Islamist theocrats who murder their own people en masse, spread terrorism throughout the region, desire the defenestration of Christianity, yes, ask the Shia leaders of Iran what they think about Christianity, and threaten the West directly. Nothing in Scripture suggests that going along with those plans is somehow...
Yeah, so this is right before the peace deal. So then there was this. Okay, so Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News and the New York Post and, Page 6 and, some of these other things, is a big-time Zionist, and he owns Fox News. So this guy, Mark Levin, is somehow associated with Fox News, even though no one wants to watch this guy, right? And here's his reaction.
People of Iran, what are we going to just leave them there? There's nothing that we can do, and we're going to wash our hands over that?
Okay, so you do not give a fuck about the people of Iran. You were just talking about dropping nuclear weapons on them like yesterday, right? But now you're so concerned about the civilians. You're such a wonderful person.
That to me is morally very difficult to accept.
We're about to drop a nuclear weapon on these motherfuckers, right? Like fucking And now you're, my morale, I have care for them.
And then what about the proxies, Hezbollah? I was reading these statements. Hezbollah has killed more Americans than Iran directly. Hezbollah is Iran. Hezbollah is firing missiles into Israel.
Yeah, don't give a shit, right? Don't fucking, like, that's not American. What's this?
By the hundreds still, and here we have a ceasefire that they've already broken. And so, yes, the argument will be, well, they don't have control of this and control of that. Well, if they don't have control of this and control of that, how do we even enter into an agreement? There's a lot of complicated...
All right, so, this guy, only because he's backed by money and power, is just nobody, I don't know how anybody would listen to this guy. He's just obnoxious and just the worst. Ben Shapiro's, who's to say who's worse, right? I doubt the ceasefire is going to hold because Trump's under tremendous pressure for Israel. They got something on him, right? So, there's that. So this one, breaking a massive victory for President Trump, Iran promises to reopen the Hormuz Strait. That's the first time in history Iran will allow ships to transit. Art of the deal. And so then this person posted this thing here. When you're dumber than a bag of hair, it's just like rain. We love it. Feels like a shower of freedom. Refreshing like a rainstorm. Because they're just so fucking retarded. Right? And then here. Okay. So when you get fucking played by somebody, the way Tucker Carlson got played by Trump or whatever his bullshit thing, whatever his CIA orders, whatever his involvement in here, whatever his culpability here. He's admitting to something here.
Maybe some did, but certainly the leaders of the American Christian churches, by and large, said absolutely nothing. And maybe because they said nothing, this accelerated. These are the same people who sort of didn't notice somehow that on Inauguration Day, the president did not take his oath of office with his hand on the Bible. His wife stood next to him holding it. I was about 15 feet away and saw it. But he did not put his hand on the Bible. And that should have been maybe a clue that we need to pause and think about, what is this? Why wouldn't you put your hand on the Bible?
I don't know how much this thing got to Trump. I don't know if they played it for him. He's dismissed Tucker Carlson, who has a huge following. Like, he gets more views than any of these other Republican pieces of shit. But why didn't you talk about here? He'll say it himself here.
If you don't believe in the Bible, you think it's just a book, there's no cost to you to putting your hand on it, just kind of following the protocol, going along with the tradition. All presidents do it. Why aren't you doing it? And you're not doing it intentionally. You're choosing not to put your hand on the Bible when you take that oath.
Unintentionally, you meant.
That suggests not that you don't believe it's real, because if you didn't believe it was real, why would you care? You'd put on the costume and take it off. It doesn't matter. That suggests you know it is real.
It's real.
And you're rejecting it intentionally. You know what you're doing. And you're doing it anyway. But nobody asked questions about that either. It seemed kind of inappropriate, given the celebration then in progress, to ask, why wouldn't you put your hand on the Bible when you take the oath of office to lead our nation? But pretty much nobody did. I didn't. I'll admit that. I saw it and didn't say one word. Bothered me ever since.
Why would you? Like, this was a big thing. My wife, showed me a thing. I'm sure we're neither one of us, Christian, like there's no love for this guy. No, we don't care about this, right? It's whatever. Like, it's performative. Putting your hand on a book means nothing. You guys know how I feel about the Bible. But this is a big deal, and people noticed it, right? But they didn't, there's truthers who said shit about it. People who are already against Trump. But all these shills, and this is Charlie Kirk and the rest of these people, there's big moments. And the biggest moment was his fake assassination attempt. Because that was directed to his people, his audience. Like, this was, a WWE style. It segued right into that bogus fucking bullshit Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan, Tucker Carlson. He was part of that whole thing. WWE style inauguration. He was pretty psyched. Tucker Carlson was, at that event. And, He just lied to you and played you. Tucker Carlson was around there. He was the one to admit that that thing's fake, you know. But he knows, like he's smart enough to know how fake that fucking thing was, you know, and how dumb this WWE. He can't be a fan of WWE, right? Like how? Come on, it sucks. It's for retards, right? It's just, you know, when I was watching it as a kid, I thought it was stupid. Like as a child, I'm like, you know, this is pretty stupid. You know, Vince McMahon was in my region before he was national. So when you turned on wrestling on Saturday or whatever it was, you know, you watched that in Connecticut. You watched that, but there was regional wrestling all over the country. Like there was a scam, right? This whole performative bullshit thing, weird, twisted things, a lot of weird sex stuff, a lot of gay stuff. Like, you know, there was like, you know, and I mean, we saw that in the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix, well worth watching, you know, to deal with Trump and his bullshit. And, you know, of course, him not putting his hand on the Bible is another huge thing. Why the fuck not, you know, why not do it? But, you know, you should have known before either of those things that Trump was a piece of shit. Because Trump's been saying over and over again in every possible way since 1970, you know, the 80s when Trump became popular, I'm a selfish, narcissistic piece of shit, right? On The Apprentice, like he never was not being that guy. He was never, you know, he was never a person that cared about other people or, you know, the country or these things. He cared about Trump. I mean, a guy who walks out, you know, it's blasphemy on a stage with his giant Trump name up behind him, which I showed you in a recent video, you know, that whole stuff. And his, you know, when he was, not the inauguration, but his, you know, when he was accepting the nomination to be president. And the way he's responded and acted towards people, the way he's lied, the things he's covered up, his weird sexual stuff, his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, his, you know, completely being giving Israel everything they want, you know, all the things he said about this, lying about being a Christian, just all the stuff across the board. And just, it's a mess. Like, he's a mess. You know, he's not hiding it from anybody. And of course, a selfish person, this is what they're going to do. Like, they're going to act selfishly.
But right around January 4th...
Okay, so, you know, he gets into whatever he's getting into. But this is, you know, you already knew. Like, you're coming to the party late. Like, all these pieces of shit, you know, it's about, you know, seeing... The fake assassination attempt was so fake. Like, it was just so fake. And every person in the truth community would have been calling bullshit on this if it was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And so you have a separate standard for your enemies, but clearly Trump was, you know, doing this and you went along with it. So fuck you and fuck everybody who did this, right? Like, this is, you know, this is the guy you got and you want him, and, you know, and fuck the Democrats for electing Joe Biden and making this happen. You know, you're all like, you all have blood on your fucking hands, right? You know, there's no stopping this, but you didn't have to go along with it. There's no stopping the end of America. There's nothing we can do. So that's fine. Like, you know, there's no, but don't be a fucking collaborator with the, you know, with the whole thing, right? Like, this is God's will and it's going to happen, and sure. And all these people are, you know, participating in the cleansing of a demonic system. And Trump is, and that is whatever that is, like that, you know, but don't fucking, you know, don't go along with it and then come back like and want people to listen to you like you have credibility. You have no credibility, like, because you fucking watched something, like two things that happened, this fake assassination attempt and not putting his hand on the Bible, and you were supporting him and really celebrating this thing when everyone knew that, like, Trump was a piece of shit. Like, you know, there was no indication that he was not about making America great again. Like, he's just not a fucking real thing. Okay, so this came in yesterday. Fox News, rumor erupts after general's response. And they're trying to make this look like it's a funny moment, humorous moment, human moment. But it shows what a lying piece of shit Trump is. Like, fucking...
Forget, how many men did you send altogether, approximately, for the operation?
I'd love to keep that a secret.
Oh, so first of all, let's go back here. Look at this. Look at these jowls. Look at that shit, right? He's trying to hide this fucking... Look at that's just... Fucking lizard guy, fucking whatever. Anyways.
For the operation.
I'd love to keep that a secret.
Okay, well, but I will tell you, the number, I'll keep it a secret, but it was hundreds.
Okay, so, this is a guy who said he didn't want to talk about his plans because he thinks it's stupid to reveal your plans, which is true. But then he's giving out military secrets. This guy said, well, let's not talk, we might have to do this again, right? So let's not talk about what we did because they don't know, and they don't know how many people we brought in, what we did, these things. And Trump violated that, because he wants to talk about it. But then he says this.
And hundreds of these people, that's pretty good. Is he central casting?
Is he central casting? He says that quite a bit. Because, this is all, like, who knows if there's even a war here? Like, we don't even know. Like, you can't trust the media. Like, they tell you there's a war. Is there a war, right? When I, because of my meditation, there is people from all over the world that would go to this ashram in Chennai, India. Where I lived there for, on and off for 3 years, had to, whatever it was. And then other trips there. And I knew people from all over the world. Like I knew somebody from Madagascar. He bought my book, The Choice. This guy I gave my book, The Choice, to Master Charji. And he put his hand on it and he kind of blessed it or whatever it was. And all these people came up and wanted to buy the book. And the first guy who did was from Madagascar, near the little island of Madagascar from the game Risk. That's, an island off of African coast. And, there's people from all over the world that do this meditation, right? And there's lots of people from Russia and the Ukraine, and they hung out together. It was hard to distinguish between them. And a number of them are still my Facebook friends. Like some people I know, some people I don't. And so when this war with the Ukraine happened, I was looking at their accounts. Like I looked at all the people I knew were from the Ukraine. There's at least 5 or 6 of them that are still, and some of them posted about the war, and they were posting shit from like CNN. they didn't have like videos from their region. They didn't have any like videos that were like things that were happening to their, like viral videos and shit like that. That would be on Twitter or something. People, in their region. They just had stuff that was the same stuff we were getting, right? Like, was there even a war there? Like, I was like, did they have, there was no evidence of it. Like, people who I knew were there in that country. And there's times that you can be at war at your country and you don't even see it. Like, you don't see it. And these people didn't. And so who's to say what's going on with Iran, right? With the central casting. So there's that. Okay, so, Trump and Pete Hegseth and Fox News and all the dumbfuck Trumpers are celebrating this. And let them celebrate. In fact, I hope the liberal media, which they won't, and everybody else won't say shit that would, because they're already going to get pressure from Israel, like just to let it be. But it's not, Trump's going to be, it's a humiliating thing here. Based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off destructive forces being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. So he's making it sound like they're agreeing to this, and he's won. Like everyone's saying that. Like in terms of the Trumpers and Fox News. I agree to suspend the bombing attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. There'll be a double ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace of the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran. This is the key part. From Iran, and believe it's a workable basis on which to negotiate. He received that like 2 days ago. It was like, and there's nothing that they're giving other than opening the Strait of Hormuz, which was already open before the war, right? So, America hasn't won shit. Like, you've bombed them and you've done whatever damage you've done, but they want reparations for that shit. So, if they say, hey, this is, we want all 10 of these things, and that's it. Like, we're going to close the strait again. And, like, he's the one who seems, he's been more desperate than they are. And that's always the worst part when you're in negotiation. I mean, he's looking for an off ramp. And so so that's fucks it, right? Almost all the various points of past contentions have agreed between the U.S. and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. So all he's getting is the Strait of Hormuz being opened again, right? On behalf of the United States of America and its president, and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it's an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Trump, thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Like, the only thing you're getting is something that you already had before you fucking decided to go to war with them, which is opening the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, if you're agreeing to their 10-point plan, then, which is a worse deal than Obama. And I hope people don't point that out, right? Like, to people that way, they would get back to Trump and he'd feel like, butthurt about it because he's got no real options. I mean, destroying their critical infrastructure, I don't know if he ever intended to do that. It seemed like he just backed down at the last minute because it was a bluff. It seems like he was just bluffing. They called this bluff. But holy shit. All right, let's only wrap this one up here. So I saw, there was the first thing I opened up Twitter this morning, and there was a post from Laura Loomer. And I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but her face all fucked up. I wonder if there was a filter or she's got some kind of facial disease or something. And she's almost in tears. And, we saw all these other people. All the Zionist shills are bummed, right? And they're bummed I mean, they want complete destruction of Iran, and that's whatever it is. But I think the majority of them realize that Trump got played on this. Or he didn't get played. He doesn't want to do what, they call this bluff, right? And so, he doesn't have anything. And he's, completely underwater on this whole fucking war. And it's, this is bad on every level because, it makes him look weak and just the whole thing. The whole... Anyway, but, there'll be more to cover. So this will be my last video. There'll be no video tomorrow on Thursday, and then I'll be back on Friday morning. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.